Kristian, thanks very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are too. So what we always do with these Q&As, Kristian, we try and go on a little bit of a journey. So all of the young people joining us today are from right across England, Ireland and Wales. We've got a few students joining us today from Qatar in the Middle East as well. Now, all of these young people are starting their journey in the sports industry. And I know many of the young people here want to become strength and conditioning coaches in the future. So we think that this is going to be an invaluable opportunity really for them to learn, obviously, the steps that you've taken on your journey. So with that in mind, obviously, we're going to speak a lot about your role with working with Tyson Fury. But if we were to roll the clock back to when you first got into this, I mean, did you always know you wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach?
Not specifically. I always wanted to be a personal trainer, for want of a better word. Going back to sort of times I was sort of in sixth form years, sort of 16 to 18, I knew I wanted to go down that path. But I was also thinking potentially about, teaching, being a PE teacher, that kind of thing. Being a strength and conditioning coach specifically wasn't necessarily in my mind, but it wasn't as much of a thing then. Looking at boxing specifically then, basically you had a boxing coach who did everything. You didn't really have this sort of, nutritionists and strength and conditioning coaches like you do now. So as obviously things opened up, then my mindset changed.
Absolutely. So just tell us about your early education then when you were in college. Well, once you what did you do in college and where did you
after school, I knew I wanted to do something around, I'm always into sports, or, that was my passion. I wanted to work. I wanted a job that wasn't a horrible job. I wanted a job I enjoyed doing, something that I had a bit of passion about. So I did A-level PE, 16 to 18, and then went on and done a sports-based degree at Staffordshire University, which was actually, as we spoke the other day, it was a BA Honours, but it was a sort of a combined degree where there was a lot of science-based modules.
All right, brilliant. And just tell us, Kristian, about your actual first job in sport. What was that?
Well, I from graduating university, I did actually a little job for a few months, and then I went into the sort of fitness industry, and I got a job at Total Fitness actually. I've only just left, ironically enough. So I've had multiple roles in between, but I still basically had the same day job, for want of a better word. But yeah, I got a job as a fitness instructor there. Very rapidly that turned into that. I got busy, started doing PT, and then I rapidly got rid of my sort of employed status and was as a self-employed personal trainer for nearly about 18, 19 years. And then obviously my sort of interaction with boxers started a few years into my personal training career.
And who was the first boxer that you got the opportunity to work with?
Yeah, I basically got friendly with Paul Smith, who some of you may know, some of you may not. He was a super middleweight boxer from Britain. He got to world level. He had 2 world title fights, but was British champion twice. And it was actually his first British title challenge. I think it was 2008, but don't quote me on that. He approached me to start working with him for that camp, and then from that point onwards, I did the rest of his career.
Brilliant. And it's interesting you just mentioned something there about up until recently you were still working at Total Fitness. So yeah. Does that mean as a strength and conditioning coach in boxing, that's not your full-time role? For example, we'll go on to Tyson. Obviously, I go away with Tyson on camps, and I will go and see him regularly between camps. But it's not a full-time job. I have a few other athletes I've worked with on and off. But I work with the everyday public still. I still do. I actually enjoy that. I've never really wanted to give it up. Plus, it's from a purely business point of view, it's multiple revenue streams. I do online trading, things like that. I didn't ever want. I quite like diversity. I quite like the variety, and it keeps you passionate about the things you really enjoy doing as well. If you do the same thing over and over again, no matter what it is, you can get stagnant. Brilliant. And you mentioned obviously your first boxer that you worked with was Paul Smith, and he obviously had a lot of success in his career, which obviously you've played a part in. So how did working with Paul Smith, sort of linked to working with Tyson Fury, how did that all come about?
Obviously I was working with Paul, and then those of you know, he's got three other brothers who are all two world champions and another world title challenger. Callum Smith's the most famous probably of them. He's currently WBA champion and Ring Magazine champion. I worked with Callum from 16 right and through pretty much till I couldn't fit him in when I was with Tyson. So we had, a point where I couldn't really keep working with him while I was on, in different continents. But with working with them, it sort of built my reputation up. And I actually, just one of those things, it was like a friend of a friend, for want of a better word. A friend of mine who owns Polite Nutrition, actually on the top here, a local supplement company, actually. They're based not far from me. They're based in Kirby in Liverpool. And they sponsored Tyson early in his career. And Tyson wanted to do the Vladimir Klitschko fight camp outside of Manchester. Although he's nowhere near as famous as say he is now, he didn't want the sort of media attention around his training. So we trained out of an industrial unit in Kirby with no windows. Nobody knew he was there. He lived in caravans in the owner's garden in autumn, believe it or not. And we trained every day from there. We did the entire fight camp from there. And it was really just Thomas, who knew me, knew I worked with boxers, knew I was local. It was just one of those sort of, lucky scenarios. But I, from doing, as we spoke about this the other day, I never charged Paul Smith a penny. I did that for work experience for myself. I got my foot in the door with Paul, and it was great because it gave me exposure to loads of clients for like the normal one-to-one business. So I was making my money off it in different ways. And then obviously it led on to Tyson, which is sort of, took my career onto a whole different level.
And I think that's really important, man, a really important message for the students. We talk about the importance of voluntary work experience at a young age, sort of 16 right through to 21, 22. And obviously it's important to continue to do that later on in life if you want to continue to open further doors.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look at it as, I looked at it as, I enjoy getting to work with an athlete was something I kind of wanted to do, obviously, and it was something I could get my teeth into. I was making my money through, everyday people who wanted to lose weight, get fit, etc. So that was my opportunity to sort of cut my teeth and to actually do, you take your training to a different level. You do get some clients on an everyday basis who are in a very good physical condition, and you can really test the limits of your own abilities as a trainer. But obviously, once you get athletes on board, it's, the scope of exercises, for example, you can do dramatically increases. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was, I didn't do it just to move on. I did it because I enjoyed it, but enabling my, the sort of the benefits to my career, which I didn't know at the time, how dramatically that would be. That wasn't my pure focus, but it actually turned out to be, the best thing I could have ever done.
Brilliant. And when you were first introduced to Tyson Fury, I'm guessing you will have had almost like some preconceived ideas about what he was like as a personality.
This is it. It was literally at the front door to the gym for the first session, and he got out of his car, and he was all hoodied up. It wasn't a particularly nice day, so he was all wrapped up, hoodie on, and quick introduction, and we're walking to the gym. And at that point in the media, he was different to he is now. He was playing a character. He was playing a baddie, really. He was, boxing is very much show business. You can be the best boxer and not earn particularly good money. And you can be an average boxer and have a big name and, something you sell yourself better and you make more money. So he was very much trying to sell himself as like the pantomime villain at the time. So I thought he was, I wasn't that enamored with him before I met him. I thought, what's he going to be like? He was completely different. It was like, within about 10 minutes, he's very laid back, just a nice guy, very easy to talk to, not, for want of a better word, not up his own arse at all. And was just, if he was in a room with 20 people who were all very normal, he would talk to anyone. He's that kind of person. He's not a superstar.
Okay, so where did you start at that point then as a strength and conditioning coach? An athlete who you've never met before, you've never worked with before. What's the first thing that you do?
Well, I do a basic session, for want of a better word. Obviously, I knew he was knew he's an athlete, but I didn't know what kind of, what his athletic range was, what his strengths and weaknesses were. So he had actually been on a bit of a weight loss. I mean, he was coming in for this Vladimir Klitschko fight. People know he's lost weight since,
but Tyson Fury always come into camp heavy. So we had a good sort of like 16 weeks before the Vladimir Klitschko fight, but he had already been on a fat loss little camp in France where he'd lost a lot of weight very quickly, which I don't like, and which subsequently, me and Tyson have talked about it before. We know it's not the right way to go about it. He had lost a dramatic amount of weight in like a 2-3 week period. He was run down. The first session I did with him, he was like awful, and after the first session, he actually went home for a week because he got ill. He was that run down. His immune system was that low. He was he picked something up. He wasn't well. From that point onwards, when he came back though, it was like a different story. He was, the progression was like dramatic. He was losing weight regularly, not as dramatic weight loss. So I'd sort of scheduled weight loss so that it was more as consistent and as minimal as possible to get into the weight we wanted by the end of the schedule, rather than trying to dramatically lose too much weight too quickly.
Right. I mean, just linking to that, the lead up to that Vladimir Klitschko fight, I read an article, and obviously this week's Mental Health Awareness Week, and one of the things that really shocked me, I suppose, was you were quoted as asking him a question before that fight, where you said, how will you celebrate? And I read there that his response was that I'll be depressed. Yeah,
and it almost gives me goosebumps when I think back, because I can put myself back in that position right now. I remember exactly where we were. We'd finished the workout and we'd just done a little warm down. He was on a spin bike, just loosening his legs off after session. And I used to enjoy that little 10-15 minutes we'd spend after session, because we'd have a good chat. Like, it was his cousin Huey was training as well, another like world title fighter, and we were having a good chat, and it was just like a very nice atmosphere. And I candidly said to him, and I'm expecting him to say, I'm taking the wife and kids away on holiday, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to get pissed, or whatever, And he just said, I'll be depressed. And I was like, that's the first time he'd ever mentioned, any kind of, mentioned the word depressed at all to me. And, he never mentioned not feeling well, not feeling great on a psychological basis at any time before then. And it shocked me. And I was, I sort of laughed it off a little bit at the time. It's only now in hindsight. Now everyone knows, his story. I personally know it very well, and I've seen him a lot lower than that, and I've seen him obviously, thankfully a lot higher than that. And it's so clear to me now, the process of where he went, and that he was already suffering with depression. He had his entire life, and I think he had this goal of being world champion. And I think he knew that once he got the goal, it was kind of like, well, what now? And that obviously turned out to be, very true.
Of course. And in terms of your role there as a strength and conditioning coach, how did you respond in that situation? And then moving forward, how do you continue to monitor that situation?
You see, at the time, going back to 2015, and mental health was not discussed then. And we're only talking 5 years ago. It was not discussed then in the way it is now. It's brilliant now. It's like everyone can talk about it. And with the likes of Tyson talking about it and open up about it, men particularly now feel like we can talk about it. And I have conversations with guys probably every day. If it's not in person, it'll be on Instagram or some sort of social media platform. People are constantly asking me questions because I've been around Tyson and I, aware of the story, and people feel more comfortable to talk about it. When he first said that, I kind of laughed it off. And at the time, I wasn't sure if he was being, if he was joking or if he was being serious. And his move was good. That training camp, there was no dramatic physical signs or, nothing much else he said that would make you think he was really suffering. It was only in hindsight and what would have, we after that successful fight, he had a rematch arranged for the Klitschko. And it was that training camp that was like, that was the worst time. That was really difficult, very difficult.
And obviously the result of that being then there was almost a 2-year gap away from boxing. And it was in that time, again, it was well documented. It was in the newspapers. You could see it everywhere. His weight obviously ballooned. He was in his mental health was in a really bad place. But obviously you were the man who, you, if you like, have been the one consistent. So from 2015, right, you've been with him every step of the way. So when obviously he ballooned to 28 stone, can you just give us an insight into your role? Because you were obviously the man who helped him bring his weight back down. Was it 9 stone?
I mean, it was. You're probably looking at between 9 and 10 stone. Exactly. I mean, it was difficult. I remember weighing him when we first came back, and he was off. He was too high. He's too heavy for the scale. I think the scales I had went up to about 25 stone, and it just obviously maxed out on that. So we estimated he was around about 27 to 28 stone. And obviously for the Wilder rematch, he weighed in at just, I think it was like 18.1, I think, something like that. So obviously you're looking at roughly a 10 stone weight loss, and that was in a period that was literally only just over 12 months.
Absolutely incredible. And just excuse me, just in terms of anyone who's potentially in the room now who might be maybe having some depression themselves, or they might be struggling with the mental health, linking it back to obviously your role as a strength and conditioning coach, is there any tips that you'd share with people?
I think it's getting to know your athlete, isn't it? Or getting to, or even if it's not an athlete, it's a friend or whatever. It's it's picking up on little cues. I mean, my education on it has been literally on the job. I didn't do any sort of psychology training or any sort of mental health training, but at this, I've picked up so much over the last 5 years, but not just with Tyson, but I've also with other people who have come to me because I am not an expert, and I will openly say that, but because you've dealt with someone, I think people feel more comfortable talking to you because I've obviously had the experience with Tyson. People do feel comfortable talking to me, and I quite like that. I think that's good. I think it's good that it's being open. That's the most important thing. Never shut someone down if they're going to talk about mental health. Talk about if you've got any problems yourself. Try and relate, and then it's looking at like physical cues with Tyson particularly. I can pretty much tell within 30 seconds what mood he's in. And particularly for, as I mentioned before, what would have been the Klitschko rematch, we trained for sort of 6-7 weeks before he eventually pulled out of that fight. His mental health during those 6-7 weeks was all over the place. And one day I'd come in and we talk about him being bipolar. One day it'd be mania, where he was, high as a kite and he was loving it and he was wanting to train. He couldn't wait to get into the fight. And then the next day it'd be like depression, and it'd be like, I wish the fight was already over with. I just want to get paid and go home, and he wasn't even interested. And if Tyson Fury, he's so competitive. Whatever, if we play Monopoly, he has to win. Poker, he has to win. He'll do anything he can to win. He'll cheat if he has to. He will win. But that for him to just say, I just want to get paid and go home, that's not Tyson Fury. He would rather not get paid and win. So his mental condition. He was in no position to go into that fight, and it was a blessing in disguise. He never actually went into that rematch when it was.
Yeah. So let's jump ahead to much better times. Obviously, 2020, not long ago, actually, only a few months back.
No.
He made history by becoming 2-time world heavyweight champion by beating Deontay Wilder in the rematch. Just tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about the build up to the fight. Tell us about after the fight. Just give us an insight.
Yeah, well, obviously it's you got 2 Wilder fights, and they were so different, really. In that, obviously the first one we knew he was ready and fit, but he lost, as we just said, 10 stone. So for the first one, you can't lose 10 stone and be physically optimal in that space, that time space. It was a calculated gamble, that first fight, which paid off in kind, because even though he didn't win the fight and he very nearly lost, he won the fight in most people's eyes, but he nearly got knocked out.
Yeah.
But the gamble paid off, and it enabled him to get his big contract with Top Rank, and that led on to this, was all geared then for the second Wilder fight. But going into the second Wilder fight, we knew we had to train properly for it. We knew we got everything that you could get in camp correct. We got correct. We had a couple of fight camps in Vegas previously. We'd had a very good camp against Tom Schwartz, and then a suboptimal camp, I'd say, against Otto Wallin. Describing that, he's always professional, and it was not by any means an unprofessional fight camp, but there was lots of little things that we did or didn't do that we made improvements on. He had a friend cooking for him who done his best possible job, but he was not a nutritionist. He was not a chef. He was, he cooked very well, but there's a difference between a professional nutritionist and, your friend cooking for you. He was drinking Diet Cokes, for example, 2-3 Diet Cokes a day. He wasn't monitoring his fluid intake, his water intake quite correctly. He was deviating slightly on his diet. We had good sparring partners, but we probably didn't have great sparring partners. Every little thing that I wrote a big list of about 10, 15 different points. I thought I'd need to bring the list up. I didn't even need to bring it up. For the Wilder 2 fight, he knew himself. He'd put it all in place. He knew where he needed to make improvements. Made a few little changes, even changed his boxing trainer. Everything he did for that Wilder 2 fight was to give him an optimal training camp. We had no stone left unturned. And Tyson mentally for that fight camp was 100%. He didn't cheat one little bit on any phase, whether it be training, resting. He didn't leave the house hardly at all, apart from commitments he had to go on. He didn't cheat on his diet. We got George Lockhart, quite a famous UFC chef, Conor McGregor chef. We recruited him into the team, who was a great addition because we had the guy on site to help me. I used to do a lot of the sort of all the supplementation and all the sort of nutritional support. I would liaise with the nutritionist, but I'm not a nutritionist. And we had a chef who wasn't a chef, So it was, trying to get the best possible mix with George. He controlled everything on that side, so I could concentrate on my job. Boxing coach didn't get involved. He didn't try and interfere. We all didn't try and interfere with each other. It was literally the perfect training camp. So we knew. I was so confident going into that fight.
Now, I always think it's fascinating when people like yourself who are working at the cutting edge of sport talk about things such as, fight camps or pre-season training camps. So just give the students an insight into a lot of all the young people in the call now want to work in sports in the future. Mm-hmm. So if you could just break it down really quickly for us. Obviously, we know you're there as a strength and conditioning coach. You've touched on there's someone who's looking after nutrition. Who else is involved in that fight camp?
Well, I'll give you a little breakdown. I mean, we had his boxing coach, Sugar Hill, for this fight. It was his first fight he worked on him with. He actually lives in America, so we met him. He sort of travelled separate. We have Isaac Lowe, another boxer. He always fights on Tyson's undercards. It's basically like a training partner for Tyson, which is good psychologically to have that other person in camp who has to eat the same food and has to train at the same times and go through the same processes. Obviously myself, we have Tim, who did do the cooking previously, but Tim's a bit like, Tim will do everything possible in camp. So he's like a liaison for Top Rank, and he does a lot. He basically manages Tyson's life while he's there. Trying to think if I missed anyone out. Oh, and we have Matt Towie, sports therapist, another guy from who's based in Liverpool. So we all travel out together. We live together. So we live in we have a huge, basically rent a giant mansion, and we eat, sleep, train, and live together. We watch movies together. We do everything. We live like a family while we're in camp. And, I love it. And I like routine. Tyson loves routine. Talking about mental health, routine is absolutely key for him. He does the same things at the same time each day, and that's what keeps him going. The workouts, training. Right now he's training 2-3 times a day. I spoke to him this morning. He's training 2-3 times a day. He's doing his Instagram workouts every day. It's keeping him going. It's giving him purpose, and that's what he needs: routine and purpose. So that's what it's like in camp. We are constantly, we get up at the same time, we have breakfast, we usually go to the Top Rank gym at like 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll come home, have lunch. I usually go to gym myself after that, come back, he'll eat again, and then we go and do a second session a day, whether that be back in the boxing gym or my session. And we do that basically every day. Saturday we just do one workout in the morning. It's usually a run, just like a recovery run. And Sunday is rest day, which is the worst day in camp because it's boring. There's nothing to do.
You know what, it sounds like an amazing job you've got, and I feel as though I could just sit here and keep firing questions at you, but I'm really mindful that there's a lot of other people in the room who will want to ask questions, so I don't want to take up anyone else's questions, if you like. But just when you're describing some of the things you do there, I'm guessing obviously in your role working with Tyson Fury, you'll have no doubt done some amazing things and been to some amazing places. What would you say is your best memory in the last 5 years?
Obviously the fight nights are special, and the ring, we walk out to the ring together, and I've done from the comeback, we did the Safari, then the Pianetta, and then Wilder 1, and then we did Schwartz in Vegas, Valley in Vegas, and then Wilder 2. So 6 consecutive fights in the comeback. The ring walks are unbelievable. They're like a proper buzz, they go walking out into the crowd. It's it's unbelievable. They're great. On a sort of like experience level outside of the boxing, probably a couple of months back we flew private jet from Las Vegas to Los Angeles to meet Mike Tyson. We spent the day with Mike Tyson, stayed in the best hotel in Los Angeles, and then went to watch a boxing event in Los Angeles. We had ringside tickets, and then we flew back that night on private jet, and I sat with the pilots on the way home. So that was probably the best weekend that I had. That wasn't about the boxing.
Is that the picture on the screen there? Sorry, Kristian.
Yeah. That was meeting the 2 Tysons as such. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Great stuff. So 2 more things from me, and I always ask these questions when we do these chats. For anyone in the room who wants to become a strength and conditioning coach in the future, obviously following your footsteps, what key skills should they be focusing on developing?
You've got your practical skills, obviously, that your actual your knowledge of your discipline. But I think the key thing for me, and what I see about other people in the industry, and that's the one thing, whether they're a boxing coach, nutritionist, or what I do, it's the passion. The people that are at the top are passionate. So it's not a job. You're not doing it because you have to. You want to do it. If you're looking at this as a career and you think, I wouldn't mind doing it because I want money or I want this or I want that. That's you've got to love your job to be good at it. I think, or to have that passion to learn more and to keep developing. And also, I'd say there isn't one way of doing it. There's I've been in the industry for 20 years, and the science changes constantly. You're having to constantly adapt, but also it's keeping an open mind, because what you think is the best way of doing it isn't always the best way of doing it, and seeing what other people are doing. I learn off younger coaches more than I learn off older coaches, because they're coming through with these new ideas, especially now with Instagram, YouTube. It's limitless. So it's trying never get too cocky. Don't think you're the finished article, because you never are.
Brilliant. And obviously, if you've shared a couple of tips there, is there any other final tips before we open up to Q&A? Any other tips you'd share?
I'd say when it comes to training, the one word that I use the most with, whether it be for someone just trying to lose weight or for somebody who's trying to actually make dramatic physical improvements, is consistency. If you have a 6 out of 10 training program that you follow consistently, you will get good results. If you have a 10 out of 10 training program that you are inconsistent with, you don't get results. So you have consistency. And me and Tyson's previous trainer, Ben Davison, he uses the word a lot, consistency. It is so important to be consistent, whether it be diet, exercise. It's got to all be there. You've got to be consistent.
And I think that's a brilliant place to finish, really, because that is something that we as a company, LLS, would encourage all of our students to do. We talk about our winning formula, getting good qualifications, getting weekly work experience, and growing your network. Now, I think, you saying that they're being consistent, if students can implement that across those 3 areas, that'll certainly put them in a good place.
Yeah, 100%.
Start developing the career. So I'm just gonna go to the room now. Then, if we could, please, Kristian.
No problem.
We've got about 10 minutes left. So normally, what we do, I might need Mike's support on this, but if we could just do a thumbs up in the room if you've got a question, please, or you can post it in the chat, whichever you prefer.
We've got a question here from Sean, which I'll just read out. He's put in the chat. So what, for your opinion, what is the biggest difference between Sugar Hill and Ben Davison as a coach?
I'd say they were both absolutely pricelessly important at the times they were at. Ben Davison was like, I don't think there was another trainer in the world that could have got Tyson from where he was to where he got to in terms of his mental state and physical state, because Ben had everything available that could achieve that. Most notably, he was young, able to be flexible and adaptable. He lived with Tyson for 6 months. You know, how many people with, you know, if you've got a trainer, most trainers have got family, wives, girlfriends, you know, it's not practical to do that. Ben did everything along those lines. And Ben also is like a very, very exceptionally talented young trainer. Where Sugar Hill was different, Sugar Hill is a lot more experienced. He'd worked with Tyson before. It wasn't, you know, Tyson went and trained for a few weeks in the Kronk gym while Vladimir Klitschko was there, actually, back many years ago anyway. And Andy Lee was there at the time, which is why obviously Andy Lee was an assistant coach for the last fight. Sugar Hill, I knew nothing about him other than who he worked with and where he was from. Within a week, I was so impressed with the guy. He was his technical ability to change Tyson's fundamentals in a short space of time was phenomenal, and it was minor alterations that made dramatic difference. I watched the fight back. A couple of days ago, and if you watch the power on his stiffness to his jab, he did like a check left hook that he used quite a few times, and that 1-2 straight down the middle that he was using. They were all the shots he was practicing and drilling and getting more balance on throughout the entire fight camp, and the results, you know, were massive. The effectiveness of his performance was in large part to these technical changes.
Thanks very much. I'm just seeing a question from here. I have a feeling I might know the answer to this question, but it's coming from Craig Oliver, and he said, what would be, for you, what would be the dream fight that you'd love to see Tyson Fury in, and why?
I do want him to fight Anthony Joshua, obviously. I actually said before, but you know, I'm not saying anything new. Before he fought Deontay Wilder, I said the one opponent I would fear is Deontay Wilder, not Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is exceptionally talented physically. He's got a lot of good attributes, but he's quite well suited for Tyson Fury stylistically. So I actually think it would be, on paper, an easier fight. You never know how a fight goes. You don't know how a training camp goes. You don't know about injuries and things like that. But I would be, you know, I would love to see him fight Anthony Joshua. And obviously they both got all the belts. It's got to happen, and I'm sure it will happen at some point. Where, and with all that this is going on, who knows? And I know there's a lot of money being offered from like the Middle East and stuff, so there's a very good chance it will be over there. But they may well have more than one fight anyway, so we hopefully at some point we'll see them fight in the UK as well.
Brilliant. Next question is from Ethan Davis. And obviously, Ethan's picked up on the point about the importance of work experience. So he's basically said, where would you recommend going to gain strength and conditioning work experience?
I'd say look at where you are locally. I mean, especially, you know, if you're going to do work experience, you've got to make sure it's practical for you as well. You don't want to be traveling huge distances. But I'm sure wherever you're based, there will be good coaches in your area. Now, I've had people ask me, and I you know, you can't do everything. You can't say yes to everything, but where practical, I'll never say. I've had loads of guys doing, like, you know, from school kids doing work experience with me, whether that just be, you know, we're not talking about training Tyson Fury and taking people down with me because it's not always practical. But you know, just doing like your regular clients, doing little bits of strength and conditioning with normal people. I've had lots of people do work experience over the years. So it's, you know, it's asking, and you know, especially like we've got a gym here in Ormskirk. Obviously, we're looking to completely relaunch it for when we're allowed. But, you know, where people are prepared to come and do work experience, for us, that's great. You know, it's something we get something out of it as well. And we've got a young guy who's starting with us on an apprenticeship when we open. You know, we're always looking at developing young individuals that have got a passion. So just look locally, but look for, you know, particularly people who are in the areas that you have passion about.
Brilliant. And that's certainly something we'd like to chat to you more about. Obviously, the opportunity for some of our students to come and watch you at work and potentially assist you as well. I think that'd be an amazing opportunity if we can look to make that happen.
We spoke about that, and I'm definitely, we are open for that. And I've got Liam Woods here, who's just walked in the gym actually, who's a local boxing coach. I've been around the best coaches in the world. He's an exceptionally talented young coach. So, hopefully we'll have some big fighters coming through here in the not too distant future.
Amazing. Just a couple more then to finish, if we could, please, Kristian. The next one is from Ethan Williams, and he's asked, basically asking, how do you feel? How does it make you feel now, obviously, working with Tyson Fury and achieving what you have with him?
I do take a lot of pride in it. It's a ridiculous story when I think back. Obviously we had no idea how everything was going to go when I first started working with Tyson. He was known in the boxing world, but he wasn't particularly famous. He was, he got the fight with Klitschko. He got a lot of fame out there. He got more fame from being out of the sport and what happened to him being out of the sport. But the process from being 28, I say it to him regularly. It was only a couple of years ago. He was 28 stone, and he didn't have tons of money. He hadn't earned as much as people think from his first part of his career. He had to get his career back. He had to support his family. To go from where he was to being where he is now, when you think he's in the absolute peak of his sport, it's a ridiculous story. If you look at all the boxing movies that have been made over the years, I can't think of one that's got a better story. So, I take a lot of pride in it, and it gives me goosebumps thinking back and looking at where we came to. The picture there, that's in the change room after Wilder won. Everyone in that change room was crying. Everyone, I was by the side of the ring, his brothers everyone had tears in their eyes. The pride to know how to describe the mental strength it took to go from where he was to be able to stand up to that guy on that night, take everything he's got and give it back, was ridiculous. Because he, as I said before, that wasn't the prime Tyson Fury that night. That was as good as we could have got. And to get him there was probably the best achievement, to get him from where he was to there.
You know what? I think that's a great place to leave it there. And obviously there's an amazing picture on the screen there, Kristian. I've really, really enjoyed listening to you. So I want to say thank you very much for that. Is there a place, Kristian, that people can come and obviously continue to follow your journey?
I've got obviously my Instagram, which is just my name at Kristian Blacklock. We've also got Conquer Fitness gym, and I'm also part of Diet Club UK, all on Instagram. And there's a lot of information on there. So it'd be great to get a few more follows.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do on that note. Then we'll do a little test now. So if everyone in the room can grab the phone for me, please. And we're going to do a little experiment. So if everyone can search on Instagram at Kristian Blacklock.
With a K.
Kristian with a K.
That's all I do in my life. Every time someone asks my name, I have to spell the K first, because obviously everyone just puts CH.
I'm the same. I'm Mark with a C, and I always have to correct them. Right then. So if everyone search at Kristian Blacklock and give him a follow. Let's see how many new followers you've got.
I'll follow everyone back.
It's jumping up. Yeah, it's jumping up there. But look, Kristian, we'll call it time there. Again, on behalf of LLS, thanks very much for giving us your time.
No, I really enjoyed that, and hopefully we can get some links for the future.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you, Kristian. We'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot. See you guys. Thank you, everyone.